Here is a really simple technique you can use to convert your Excel formulas to DAX using ChatGPT. As always, we'll provide a simple overview of the process. So imagine you have some data in Excel where you have the start date and end date information, and you have a formula to calculate the duration between these two dates in days. This formula might look like the one up here, detailed in the if statement. As you can see, it's quite messy. We have multiple conditions here, and it's not immediately clear how to structure this in DAX if you're new to Power BI. Fortunately, we can ask ChatGPT to do this for us. By asking ChatGPT to convert this formula into a DAX measure, it will take the Excel formula and return the formula in the DAX format suitable for Power BI. We can then create our measure in Power BI, which we can then add to our data tables in Power BI. So we'll move on to a live demo of how this works. We'll start off in your Excel spreadsheet where you may have some data that you're familiar with a start date, an end date, and a formula to calculate the duration between these two dates in days. This particular formula first checks that both the start date and end date column are filled with a value, and if the row meets those conditions, it will calculate the end date minus the start date to provide a duration in days. As you can see, the formula required to do this is fairly complex, and it's a bit confusing how to first transfer this over into DAX in Power BI. Fortunately, this is where ChatGPT comes in. You can take a copy of our formula, over to ChatGPT, and simply ask the system to convert this Excel formula, and we paste our formula here, and we ask it to convert it into a calculated column in Power BI. It will then provide the equivalent DAX formula for us to use. And we simply copy this formula and move it over to our Power BI dashboard. So within Power BI, as you can see, we have our start and end date data here, similar to what we had in Excel. We do not yet have our calculators column, so this is what we're going to add now. So if we first go to New Column, it will open up a prompt in the formula bar. And if we simply highlight this area and paste the formula that ChatGPT provided. Now, as we do that, we just need to define a name for this column. So we're going to define it as date diff. And then click enter. As you can see, we've pulled through some values in the date diff column. Unfortunately, it's now showing as a date and time format. So we just need to change that up here to a whole number or a decimal number. Now we have an integer value to calculate the date difference between these two dates. And we also have a successful DAX formula that we created using ChatGPT. This technique can be used for many other examples where you're familiar with how a formula is structured in Excel. You can use ChatGPT to convert it into the equivalent measure in Power BI. You also may be aware that there's a few types of measures within Power BI, not just calculated columns, but also measures that you can create that are not linked to calculated columns. And ChatGPT can also solve those issues. What data problem are you trying to solve? Please let us know in the comments and we'll be happy to help.